Well, it's a pivotal day in Spurs Nation and for the organization itself. It's picked a direction and it's time to head into the future. And to do that, the Spurs made the choice to move longtime beloved Spur, someone who's been putting his heart and soul into this organization from day one, DeJounte Murray. They have traded him to the Atlanta Hawks. What do you think of the trade? Let me know in the comment section down below. And let's get into the impact of this trade and what it means for the organization moving forward. We're going to talk about what the Spurs got in return for DeJounte Murray. We're going to talk about who might be next on the roster to move on. And then we're going to take a look at what the new look Spurs actually look like and what the projected future can be. And then we're going to say a little bon voyage to uh, DeJounte Murray and talk about what he had to say uh, on Twitter as well when he got the news. So let's get into it right away. What the Spurs got in return, first off, to match salaries, was Danilo Gallinari. And likely he will not play for the Spurs. I think that's the word that's really kind of going on right now. The deal as of today, which is Thursday afternoon, I believe is not officially done. I think the deadline got pushed back to work, the salaries a little bit more. And Danilo Gallinari's contract is part of that. Is he going to be guaranteed 5 million, 8 million, or 11 million? Really just depends on when this gets done. And that all has purpose as well. I think it's unlikely we see him playing for the Spurs, except there's a part of me that is like, I don't know. He was with the Thunder for a little while. He helped that team. It was a team that's in the situation that we're about to go through, and he was a good fit. He was a good teammate. He was a good leader. So maybe the Spurs do keep him around. I don't know. I wouldn't hate it because of the direction that we are going. It's like, hey, get Danilo Gallinari in here if he's cool with it, just to be a bucket every night. And if we're not going to pay anybody to win, might as well pay Gallinari. He's a great player. But the real haul came in through the NBA draft in the form of picks, future picks, three future first round picks, in the form of uh Charlotte's pick next year, 2023, which I think is lottery protected. So we want Charlotte to be good next season. So they fall outside of the lottery. We want them to make the playoffs. And so that way we can take their pick next season and the Spurs will have two picks. And then the Spurs are also getting unprotected picks from Atlanta. This is the real needle mover for the Spurs. No matter what, no matter how good or bad the Atlanta Hawks are, they're going to have their picks in 2025 and 2027. And that's the key to this deal, and that's where we get unbelievable return for DeJounte Murray's two future first round picks. I mean, come on, we get three future first round picks, but two unprotected, and that's who knows where the Hawks will be at that point. DeJounte Murray's contract is up in 2025, so if there's a free agent, free agency situation where DeJounte likes another team more than Atlanta at that point, well, he's gone. And then what state of position is Atlanta in 2025 through 2027? So we'll see how that goes. But what we do know is that the direction is now clearly visible through this trade. This tweet comes from Dylan Hunter Carter. And he's saying that San Antonio is stacked with draft picks for the next 6 years. And this is the look from 2023 through 2028 of what the picks look like. Now, I think he says here our 23 picks a silver lining. I think it's 21 because pick swaps aren't extra picks. They're just options, right, to switch with the team, right? So that's the look. Two first rounds in 2023, one first round in 2024, three first rounders in 2025, one first rounder in 26, two firsts in 27, and one in 28. The second rounders, I don't really see the Spurs utilizing those too much. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what the Spurs got in return for DeJounte Murray. It really sets the road clear. The picture is clear now of where this team is going to be heading in the next few years, and that's through the draft. And we're competing with the guys that we have right now. So is DeJounte the last guy? That's the next question. Are there more pieces to be moved? And I think the answer is yes. Now, these four players, I love them all. I mean, Romeo Langford, I don't really know too much. He didn't really play that much this season when we acquired him, that whole story. But Jakob's value is extremely high. I think you get another first rounder for Jakob. Josh Richardson as well, another first rounder. Doug McDermott, are you kidding me? Like, you're telling me the Lakers don't want any of these guys? You're telling me that a team that's trying to contend don't want any of these guys that will give up a future first in 2025 or 2026? There are plenty of teams out there that would love to have any of these pieces. And the great part of about Jakob is that just like DeJounte, we developed him over the past few years, and his stock is at an all-time high. Like that's unbelievable return for DeJounte. I wouldn't be surprised if the Spurs get a really high return for Jakob Pertl and for Josh Richardson. Matter of fact, Doug McDermott's a specialist. Someone's always going to be looking to add a shooter to their roster. So I think these are names that we might expect to see get moved in the future and acquire even more draft picks in the process. Committing to that vision of acquiring assets involves moving those guys. Okay, so let's take a look at what the new look Spurs might be. And I think this is where we start. If we're talking about long term pieces, these are your starters right now. You got Keldon Johnson, who's now like the most tenured guy on the roster. If Lonnie Walker doesn't come back, which I don't think he is, and I've been saying that for a long time already on this channel, Devin Vassell is the second tenured most tenured player. And then you got Joshua Primo and Jeremy Sohan. I think those four guys right there are your starters moving forward. I think Joshua Primo takes over at point. And you got a 6'6", 6'7" point guard who has unbelievable court vision, can shoot off the dribble. Guys, there's an argument to be made. I'm not gonna lie that we're gonna be better next season than we were the past two seasons. I'm not saying we're gonna make the playoffs or anything, but we're going to be probably just as good. Y'all are sleeping on these guys. Primo and Devin Vassell now getting all the touches in the world. Yes, please. Okay, yes, please. Some guys that can really score the ball. Yes, we're forcing Derek White and DeJounte to score the ball and making them like, come on, be scorers, right? Like this is your opportunity. Like this is where you make your money. We're gonna give it to you guys. And then they did so with it. These guys are natural born. These guys are like 18, 19 years old. These guys are already as good as most guys on our roster. So let's see what happens there for a second. And before we start saying we're gonna tank and suck and be bottom of the league, I think we can still position bottom four of the draft. I think that's a realistic expectation. But to say that we're just gonna suck, I don't believe it. Not with these four guys. Now, if the Spurs are gonna make any more moves on this board right here, Keldon Johnson is the one that I would say is maybe the guy after next season that gets moved. If Keldon Johnson is going to be the next guy to get all the touches like Keldon and Devin, well, Keldon's going to do really good for himself. And then it might be the same situation that we're seeing right now with DeJounte. We let him play, raise his stock, and then let him move. I don't want that. But the reason why I'm saying that is because he's the only guy that isn't really part of Brian Wright's vision. Keldon Johnson was kind of that last year with Luka Samanic and Quindary Weatherspoon of drafted players by like R.C. Buford and that team and that vision and that kind of mindset. And then it shifted immediately after that with when Brian Wright took over, and he's putting the mindset in to get us back to where, like, it's not a bad thing, it's a great thing, but still Keldon was not drafted by Brian Wright. So to me, it's like, oh, he's still fair game, and it's because we're playing such a long game here. Keldon just might not fit the timeline because he might be too good too fast, if you catch my drift. And in a year or two, I would hate to say it, he can either be our best player or he can be the most valuable piece for us to trade in 2025 to maybe move up and get a top pick in 2025 or 2026. You know what I'm saying? I think just because we've set this roadmap out, I think it's a possible scenario. Okay. I don't want it, but I think it's in the cards, right? Now, if we take a look at our bench pieces, I think these three players right now, Trey Jones is still unguaranteed, I believe, at the moment. So there's still a possibility that Trey Jones is not on the team next year, but I don't see, he's Brian Wright drafted guy. I don't see why the Spurs would not want to keep him around. If anything, they go out and add his brother now because DeJounte's gone and Tyus is a free agent. And it's like, hey, Tyus, come to San Antonio. Like, you and Trey can run the show for the next like 4 or 5 years. Y'all want to like be the brothers of San Antonio and be the point guards? Like, dude, that would be awesome. That would be awesome if Tyus comes over here and just like helps us be competitive through these tough years. Him and Trey Jones kind of take ownership of it at that point. I would love that. I would love that. Then you got our two other first round draft picks from this season in Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley. Um, Again, Brian Wright drafted Blake Wesley and said after draft night that he sees him playing a little bit of point guard. And I think, that might be even more in the cards now. Obviously, I was saying that these two guys might be in Austin depending on what the roster looks like. Well, I think clearly the roster is going to open up. And in order to be both in developing these guys as much as we can and as well, positioning ourselves to get a top pick in the draft at the same time, you want to play these guys. You want to play Malachi. You want to play Wesley as well. You know what I mean? So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And these 7 players are pieces that you can expect to be a part of the future, at least for the next 3 or 4 years, and we'll see how they pan out. But we also get the draft picks that, if we're talking about all those draft picks from before, we got 10 future first round picks, we got 11 future second round picks, right? So that's already 28 players. In other words, some of these guys are going to have to go. In other words, some of these guys are going to have to go, or we're going to be bundling these picks and maneuvering these picks along the way to move up, maybe package 2 to get a higher one. We're doing that almost every other year. You know what I mean? That way we can utilize these picks without losing talent. If we're going to be drafting, if we're going to be hitting it on the draft and drafting good players, we want to be able to not have to let them go. Basically, what this means is that the Spurs have a lot of options over the next 4 or 5 years on how to maneuver and build this roster out. And sometimes that's going to be, taking on bad contracts, like Danilo Gallinari, for instance. You know what I mean? Like, who else is out there? Like, let's say Russell Westbrook, just for instance, has a terrible contract and no one, wants to take him on. Well, the Spurs might be one of those teams that takes him on and kind of just benches him, and he's like resting half the season, kind of like how Al Horford did for the Oklahoma City Thunder 2 years ago, kind of like stuff like that. You're going to see the Spurs doing things like that, getting involved in bad contracts, and acquiring picks at the same time. So, the moves aren't finished, for the Spurs. There's right now the future is bright, and we're going to have plenty of opportunity to get better through the draft, which is what we want. Now, before I say we go ahead and kind of say goodbye to DeJounte, there's something that DeJounte embodies that this organization is, I think, still trying to implement, and that's where, by trading DeJounte, we said goodbye to Zach LaVine, the idea of bringing in Zach LaVine, and possibly even DeAndre Ayton. Although maybe there's still contract salary reasons to do DeAndre Ayton, but we want to draft guys like DeJounte, guys that had that investment in the organization, that care and that want and that pride in the organization. We're a small market. The only way for us to really be successful is if we look to the draft to acquire that mindseted individual that cares about this organization, and will have that blood, sweat, and tear attitude that DeJounte had. DeJounte just didn't fit the timeline, right? But that's the quality of person that we want in our organization. And it's going to be very sad to see him play in Atlanta, but I'm really hoping he makes some great playoff noise next season. Now, DeJounte went to Twitter and said, "San Antonio, I love you forever. Thank you, Spurs and the whole city, for believing in me and embracing me from day one. I want to write a whole book, but it's not easy. We're family, and it's always going to be bigger than basketball." That's what DeJounte said, and it's been an honor to draft him and see him develop and see him grow as a man, and to see him get better as a player and go through his trials and tribulations and all that. And I wish him nothing but the best of luck. Thank you for watching. This has been I'm Coach Rob Trejo Jr. Just to let you know, I'm I'm a high school coach, right, for like 6 7 years, and that's where I get my experience from. And I just love the game. Go Spurs, go! Catch you on the next episode.